everybody, it's Vicki Ross, and we are continuing our Field Notes Mondays. And this is a follow-up piece to week 3, the Trefoil rings. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to show you the simple clover in different mediums. Okay, so this time I'm using pan pastels. So the same watercolor paper that I've been using. In order to make the pastels stick, you have to have a paper with some grit, because it's like sandpaper. In fact, some of the early pastel papers were made from sandpaper. So what it does is it grabs the pigment and the binder and the stick and makes it stay on the paper, and the grit helps hold it to the paper. And if you're going to frame it, you don't use fixative. Fixative is it's okay for journals and things like that, but for fine art it lightens and changes some of your colors, so that's not a real good thing. So one of my favorite DIY coatings for pastel paper is Liquitex clear gesso. It has more grit on it than some of the other clear gessos. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get the little boogers out of here. And this is perfect for journal work or whatnot. You can make your own grit with marble dust. You can buy that stuff like sandblasting sand. It's real fine. Mix a little of that into acrylic paint or gesso. I'm using this to minimize my brush marks. This Catalyst wedge is so usable. It doesn't matter if you get a few marks. I keep dropping stuff. And a lot of artists that I know, I'll prop that right there, deliberately put, I've got a lot left on this. This time I'm going to go sideways. Had to find some glare somewhere. I think I've got a pretty good coat. Alright, I'm going to dry it. And you can kind of smooth out any lumpies you see. And we're going to call that done. Lid on. If I get a wet wipe. Sky is the limit on what you could color this and then put the grit on, put the gesso on, and then spray coffee on it, or how about spray except I don't want that kind of spray. May not have another one. My sprayer may be messed up. This is my matcha tea mixture. And since this is it's stopped up, that's the problem. Okay. That's enough anyway. I don't want all the white covered. Now, if I had done this first, it would have soaked into the paper more, but I didn't have my brain fart until it was too late. I've been messing with computer stuff. Alright, you're going to have a trip to the sink. Not right now, though. I want some darker spots to make it look like coffee just sat there. Or that matcha tea just sat there and accumulated. See, there's a clump. Guess who mixed this up? You're right. Your steadfast leader. I get in a hurry sometimes. That should still be pretty enough, but you know what? Never hurts to have a bunch of it. I really learned pastels on a sanded surface, the sandpaper stuff. And while most people including back 1800s, used a laid paper, a paper with a texture, and it is still used today for a lot of pastel artists in the world, and it's called Canson Mi-Tints. And I never learned to work on it. It's got a laid side, which means that they laid the paper on a screen and got a little pattern in it, and then the other side is smooth. It can't take very many layers. But like I said, there are people who spent their whole career working on that sort of stuff. Sanded paper, you can layer and layer and layer forever. I've had this stupid cough. Let me put this away. Neat workspace. Right, Tim? Don't know. We'll get both of those out. Here we go. I was probably looking all over the place for that brush. I'm trying to get these over here. Now, pan pastels are designed with the artist in mind, and they're so cool that people in the craft department decided they had to have them and use them for that, which is great. But I need to explain the color system. One of these colors is the pure pigment, and the color would be permanent green, and this is more than likely, it's 0.5, and that's on a value scale. This one will be probably 2 or 3. No, that's 8, so I went the wrong way. This is 3. And this would be, the darkest is the 1. So, if one of these is the pigment straight with no additives or anything, color additives, these are single pigment, which means that's all that is in it, is that particular pigment. And that particular pigment is PG50. Now that means that they all just have PG50. More than likely, I do believe that in this line of pastels, they're adding black to get to the darker color, and they're adding white to get to the lighter color. But these 4 are permanent green, period. In soft pastels, you can't mix your own color. So you have to devise a trick to make it be another color. I'm looking for my wet wipe. And that means that you kind of layer your colors. Like if that's not quite the right green, I can add a little bit of this one to make it more yellow. If I want to make green, my own green from yellow and blue, then I can dip into the yellow and the blue and make some sort of a green. That's how the old masters did, the old masters, the Degas and the Mary Cassattes, that's how they did their pastels. Expensive lines of pastels, these are mid-range, and they're very, very soft. They have very little binder in them, just enough to hold them in the pan. The most expensive pastel line has 12 or 13 different tones or shades that all would be permanent green. So in the mid-range, you kind of have to make up your own, which is entirely possible to do. Rembrandt is my workhorse hard stick, and it usually has 4 to 5 different variations of a single pigment. Okay, so when you cherry pick a color, you are, how can I say this nicely? You're more likely to get discord or colors that just don't quite go together, or you've got to be aware of if you're mixing a cool with a warm. So that's kind of about all the mixing you get, but if you're using this and this, you can end up with a discord. So, in saying that, I will consider this one color, all 4 of them, one color. If I want a limited palette, I'll pick a cooler green, which could be this, more like a Viridian, and a warmer green, which might be that. And then mix them together, I can get my colors, and then I'll pick a warm yellow and a cool yellow. And that's the way I roll. I'll end up with 6 colors. See if I can get this where you can see it. And what do we have handy? You can tell I didn't plan this. I have a soft tool, and I have 2. That'll be plenty. And get some of this stuff out of the way. That's a fairly good cosmetic sponge. I like the soft sponges, and of course you have to have them for these. But I like the soft sponges, but they get hard on me, even if I keep them in the little screw cap thing. Alright, don't get too far ahead of yourself. You've got to have a little bit of an outline. And that's a neat background. Whoops, that was pastel. Where's that wet wipe? Yeah, you can see the wet wipe immediately begins to peel. Alright, my Rachel. Hang with me just a minute. Okay, so refresher. This is watercolor one. And this is second watercolor one. So now what we're going to do is pick one of my source photos. Thank you Rain Man, for going out and getting them. And I have a bunch to choose from. I like the ones that I held up to the light the best. Round and round the wheel she goes. Where she stops, nobody knows. That wouldn't be too bad if it wasn't out of focus. Here's a pretty good one. And that's not one I took, but that's okay. I do a lot of searching in archives, and that's not a good idea. Let's see. Alright. Turn my iPad around as long as it doesn't get in your way, and it does. Oh well. My center is, I'm going to make it be about right here. And I enlarged my picture to be the same exact size of the space I have. So that's my center. I'm going to have one over here and a line over here. And then I'm going to double check that from from the center of the clover to the outer edge, about right there. And from the center to that outer edge, I'm measuring along the vein from the center about right there, and do the same for the top one. There. And that gives me parameters, kind of like an envelope that I can fit it in. Now this area, we learned, has 3 little spikies on it. And I'm going to double check my diagonal. And it comes just a very slight curve. Actually, that's more than I need. Kneaded erasers are the best for watercolor paper. Or, you know, in this case, it may not, because that grit's going to pick it up. But, okay, now I'm going to get serious. Come about like that. This one, I'm holding my pen up to the like that, and the one at the top is perfectly straight. Right there. Okay? And so now I can do the leaf attaches not into the very center, but it attaches out here. I'm just going to kind of do a blonde contour. And that's where I look more at my picture than I do at my paper. And this one comes in. And here it comes out. It's almost. And then this one comes here. Okay. Back in the drawer. Love those little drawers right there. Now let's see what we're going to do. Pastels, you work from light to dark. No, dark to light. Jesus, I'm sorry. I didn't say that. Watercolors, you work light to dark. Pastels, you work dark to light. Oils, dark to light. And I think I'm going to use this row right here. I'm just going to get a little bit on my sponge. This will be my undercoat. You may not know this, but some pastels, soft pastels, anytime I say pastels, I'll be talking about soft. Oil pastels are not really pastels. They're a completely different animal. They're more like an oil. And I don't know that I've ever tried to wet a pan pastel. So, no time like the present. This will work. It's just kind of a, it's an old low Cornell Comfort, but it's kind of stiff, which will make it perfect for this. You don't ever want to use a good brush when you're doing this. You want to use a hog bristle or something really stiff. Now, pastels are water soluble because they are just, after all, just a pigment, a straight pigment with some sort of a binder, and none of the companies will tell you what their binder is because that is a trade secret. The other thing that doing this is that it keeps the pastel, liquefies the pastel and keeps it from filling the tooth that we just painted on it. I'm dabbing into the wet just to give me a little bit of visual texture to build on. Same color. Now we'll let that dry. Sometimes I use mineral spirits for this process, and sometimes I use alcohol, and sometimes water. It just depends, yeah, on the whim. Now let's see where we are. The best pastel to use for wetting is the Prismacolor New Pastel. And you don't need to get them all because the only one, their sets, half of their sets or a third of their sets are real light colors. When you get those wet, they disappear. So it's the darker colors of Pan Pastel work the best. There are other companies who have come out with dark colors. I mean hard pastel colors. And I haven't used them because new Pastel does exactly what I need. To clean your pastel off, just take a paper towel or a soft cotton shirt or something like that. It's good to go. Alright, my next darkest color, we're still in the blue-greens. I'm going to get just a little bit of this blue-green over here. See what happens. Won't hurt a thing to just put some of that. If you're somebody hollering outside, Randy's giving haircuts today. He promised the kids a spa day. If I use any more of this tone, I will, I guess I could tell you guys what it is. Phthalo green. Sniffing, sniffing. I'm going to use a little of this. And I'm not covering everything under. I'm just dabbing this in a few spots. My suggested supply list, if you want to paint with soft pastels, is Rembrandt, a set of new pastels from Prismacolor, and some pan pastels. And if I'm sitting over at my easel, my pastel paper sits up like this. And that way any extra falls down and I catch it in a trough and gather it up and make new pastels out of it. Pan pastels don't have quite as much powdery effect. It tends to hold. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and do my, maybe not. Yeah, come on, let's just do it. Just a placeholder for me. Now the veins, this thing either concaves or pops up with the veins. This looks like the veins are sticking up a little bit. We may not need that information. Excuse my sniffling. Pastels are an opaque medium, which means that if you want your underlayers to show, you have to deliberately leave some to show. And I can clean this line up later. Pan pastels are a little pricey. But I don't know too many people that have had to rebuy them, so they last a long, long time. Now I'm going to see ahead of time how this color works. Not too bad. I'm right over here on that yellow, and I'm combining. This is bright yellow green shade. It's pigment PY3, and I lied, this one has PY3 and PG17 in it. Now I will probably have to come back and restate these, but I just kind of wanted to get an idea of where we were going to go. An old oil trick is you put your darkest and lightest colors on first, so you can judge your mediums. Your medium tones, that is. I think this is going to be fun. I have to use some of these to get the variation that I want. Now I'm obviously using every green I've got. If you want to color in between, you just take a little off each pan. And that'll give you the in-between tone. Don't worry about it messing up your pans, because you can just get that off or leave it. And that's not going to be good. Kneaded eraser's doing a really good job. Okay, now let's get some of this. Our light is coming from the right. Now the leaf is curving, that portion of it from the stem is curling that way, so the light's hitting on that edge, and then the leaf is curling back up. It's kind of going whoop, whoop. Alrighty. I was in a class one time and everybody had their brand new sets of new pastels. The teacher went around and she said, "Why is everybody using that horrible bluish green color?" It's because it was in the set and we all had gotten the set just for that class. That's when I kind of learned that it's a noxious color. Alrighty, that's not coming along too bad. The edges are not perfectly round. Just putting that on the edge and then blending it around. Down, just blend it a little bit like that to what we've already got going on. See, that leaf is really looking good to me. Y'all aren't doing a good job. I want y'all to be sure and go over to the free Facebook group called Actually Art, AXULLY. That is, in case you're wondering, phonetics. Phonetic spelling for actually. I think I will have another cup of tea. Or whatever. I fight realism. Photorealism, to be exact. So this is about as small as I will go for a utensil to apply this. I despise pastel pencils because they're practically worthless. When you want to get down to some detail work, they're too hard to make a difference. So you can remember I told you that. And you notice I'm barely touching it with my fingers. Because when you rub it, these are real pigments, and they're made up of little tiny microscopic bits of ground up rock and, you know, little something you can feel like micro glitter or something. Mica. Not mica because it doesn't have a color, but When you rub it, not only are you doing away with all the layers that you've already put on, but you're making it duller because everything just mushes together. Remember what I said in the beginning about being aware of what colors you're using? I'm using a lot because I want to see the variations of color just like I would see the variations of light when I was outside. Nothing is a flat color. Well, this is where that clover leaf hits the bottom. And then those kind of get blended up. Anyway, on the actually page, you can post your work. Okay, then this comes on down. Some tissue. And then we've got the dark. Let's restate that dark. I'm going to use this phthalo because it's darker than... Now, this is curving in like that. So, if light's over here, it's going to be darkest right here on this side. Like that. And now I'm going to use a little bit more of it right here. I didn't get any. I'm going to give up on the phone. I will put a source picture in the video. Those yellows are too, those other yellows are too orangey. Now this leaf is going back, curving back, so it will get curve and then back up just on that very edge. Yeah, then I'm going to show it to you. And I'm going to tap it. Very, very little comes off. And that is an attribute of the pan pastels. Get this, make sure y'all can see it. Alright, now we got to do the same thing to the other side. So let's come back in with our mid-tone green. And we don't have as much here right by the stem. This one must be facing out a little bit more. Alrighty, now I'm going to go back in with my and this one has, that leaf is going, that petal's going down, and then when it starts to come back up, you pick up a little bit of that going on. And you do over here, I didn't hit it quite as much, but well, what I started to tell you guys was that making videos and organizing them like a good designer should is an awful lot of work, and it requires tons of storage. I have spent fortunes over 30 years on storage. So now that everybody's using an SSD drive, that's great. They're more predictable than it's coming up and then out and then so, you know, in the past couple of years it's been 1 terabyte drives, and now 2 terabyte drives are available at a good price. Now if I get a 1 terabyte drive, I'm going to try to make it work for a while. So I'll put part of my files on the cloud and part of them on another cloud, and then if you move any of it, Final Cut Pro, which I use, can't find the files, and neither can you. So I was talking to Robin McClendon. She says, I just kind of get a new 1 terabyte every year, and it takes about a year to fill it up. And you're going to spend that much on terabyte storage in the cloud anyway, so might as well spend it on something you've got total control over. So I spent the weekend getting my files 2021 and 2020 all separated, and then opening up a file and making sure that I could still find all the pieces and parts. And of course some things get lost, but oh well. So I'm changing my process a little. I'm not letting YouTube have the only copy of a final video, so which means that I've got to make a master video to keep with all the other files, just in case I ever had to go back and rebuild. It's easier to do a new one almost. If y'all have any questions at all, please go to the Actually Art page and ask them, because I'll drop in several times during the week to answer those. The group's been in existence for quite a while, but it's kind of dormant for your participation. That's where y'all know how groups are. That's where you can upload your stuff, your pictures. And my Facebook page is Vicki Ross Art, and that's where I share my stuff. I'm just very lightly glazing that yellow. So as not to obliterate everything that's underneath it. Color green kind of works. There's only so much you can do when you're working from a photograph, because looking at it through a monitor or iPad like I'm doing, backlit light is different than this kind of light, because the camera sees the light differently than we do. And as we all know, the light is what affects the item. Okay, one more. And it is big dark. Now please give this video a thumbs up if you like it, because that's what helps steer other people to my videos. You can share my videos anywhere you want to. Please subscribe after you like it. Be sure and hit the bell so you'll get a notification if I'm going live. I don't know if you get notifications for just posts or, videos I upload or not. Most of these painting videos I'm uploading without being live, simply because they require a little more attention when I'm doing them. Meaning I had to think a little more. Painting the illusion of a shamrock. Or clover. Shamrocks are a member of the trefoil family, which is what clover is in. But each of those has a different subfamily, I guess is what you call it. And here comes that flooping out thing again. How do you like that scientific word? It's a flooper! I went for about 3 or 4 years where I didn't do anything but soft pastel. And then I started doing mixed media, so it would loosen me up and get me off of that need to be so realistic. And it has worked to a certain extent. I will still always do my realistic paintings. Just because that took so long to learn. If you see some spots that are a little too blotchy for your taste, just come back in with a little different color and muck it up a little bit. And I hear a lot of talk out there in the world about muddy colors. If you ever learn to mix colors, like for oil, you will learn that single pigment colors, which is what I started out talking to you about, you'll know what that single pigment is, and you'll know what other single pigment to mix it with. But when you get paints in like craft paints, you can't mix because they use a lot of different pigments to make that one color. And so you mix it with something else, and the next thing you know, you've got mud because you mixed a dark and light of something, or a warm and dark, I mean. And those two fight each other. And that's where you get, they neutralize each other. And that's where you end up with something that you're not happy with. And that's not pleasing me too much, so just kind of clean that up a little bit. These days I will treat you guys to a video filmed in my pastel corner. I like that green, and I did not put any more on these other leaves. Let's just get some in there. It's just a little dance. And I really, really want a bright. And how do you make it something look brighter when it's not? You have to come in and put something darker next to it. And now we have a yellowish green stem coming in here. And I don't like that. Now, most of the time pastels have a background. Some of that is from the wet flow. I think we're about done. There you go. And there's the clover. Some of that background color came from the matcha. So all these other little blurbs of what could be deemed mistakes just look like they're part of the plan. Alrighty, there you have it. Yay me. Sky's the limit. Okay guys, see you later. Bye. I'm back. I went over to the pastel area and picked up a tray of some of the colors I've used. These are cute little ATC cards. Someday they'll go up for sale. Little red puppy. Little house in Santa Fe we stayed. Little landscape. A little rose. A little lily. Oh, a little blue vase. This, I guess, was starting out to be a landscape. Now, before I put these in an archival sleeve, I will touch them up, make sure they're signed. Okay, I decided that, you know, I've got these, I might as well use them, show y'all what they can do. This is a really soft, look at the dip, look at how. And let's see. This is a Holbein hard pastel. Whoops, dirty Holbein. That's the same kind of touch. I can barely get that to write at all. Wouldn't have anything to do with the fact that it's yellow. This is a De La Rowney. Okay. This is the palest greenish yellow. Just dance some little marks around. You can get more detail with soft pastels. Sticks. There's always a sharp edge. These big square ones are Terry Ludwig's. Flourish there. I like you better. And that just dances on top of what we already did in the pan pastels. I like it a lot better now because there's more contrast. I can keep going. Let's see what else I've got in here. You can tell I haven't done a whole lot. This is kind of a buttery yellow. Just maybe a few highlights. And the first thing I have to do when I start pasteling again is put all these away. Ooh, that color's nice. Blur those lines a little bit with some green. And if I really want some dark, here's some real dark purple. And I don't like so much of that right here. Just dance it away. Need that lightest creamy. I can get way finer lines with this too, but you know, pan pastels weren't designed for a whole lot of this. But every tool has its place. God, I love working with pastels. Not covering up anything I've put on, I'm adding to. All right, absolutely, that's the last. Okie doke. Bye-bye.